Morning, everyone, and welcome to another Fusion Friday. My name is Alex Alvarez.
My name is Brian Mongkolpoonsuk.
We're application engineers here at KETIV Technologies. So happy Friday, everyone, and welcome back. We feel like we've taken a few months off, right? It feels like it's been months, actually, since we last did one of these
4
webinars.
weeks, yeah. To be technically
it's been 4 weeks. So we did have company meetings these last couple of weeks, so I mean, that kind of helped us up a little bit. But nonetheless, we're going to be here creating more content for you guys, right? For those of you guys that are new to Fusion Fridays, it's a series of webinars, right, where we go over all the environments, all the workspaces that Fusion 360 has to offer, as well as some of the updates that Autodesk has for Fusion 360.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen the most recent update, they touched up on the user interface in Fusion, so it looks a little bit more vibrant, more modern, I would say.
Yep, yeah, small little details, right, but again, it's just for the user experience. So for today, we're going to be talking about how to import canvases into Fusion 360. It's a unique workflow, right? So hopefully Brian can teach us a few things here and there, and watch how you guys can go from the canvas, either whether you're trying to take a prototype or make a prototype, make a new product, right? Just take a picture of it and then create it inside of Fusion 360. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Brian and get the ball rolling.
All right, thanks, Alex. So I do want to talk about the description that we had for this webinar. I did say I was going to be sketching onto the canvas itself. I am doing a little bit of that, but mostly I'm going to be working with the T-Splines, creating a T-Spline body first onto the canvas, and then creating some of those sketching later. So I still have some of that. I just want to let you guys know beforehand in case you're wondering if this is the same webinar that was advertised. So I'd like to start off every webinar with a purpose or a why we do things. So for this webinar, the purpose or the reasons is to, one, develop a solid foundation. Yes, for us as well, but mainly for you guys to see how a workflow starts from start to finish, especially today since we're starting from scratch. And having a good foundation in modeling will help you to eliminate those errors, those basic errors that you might see later down the line if you didn't have a solid foundation. Number two would be how to learn, or you'll be learning the tricks of the trade. And what I mean by that is hopefully I'll be going over some things or some workflows or some button clicks that you've never seen before, and hopefully you can apply that to your workflow. And lastly, guidance and mentorship. This is a live webinar. We aren't recording this by any means. Or we are recording this, but we're not, this isn't a recording by any means. So please ask us questions. Alex will be monitoring the GoToMeeting chat room and will be answering questions at the end.
I guess another purpose too is expose the users to new interfaces, right? So we're all familiar with parametric modeling, create a sketch, create dimensions around that sketch. This is kind of a neat technique to actually going around and creating your model.
Yeah, we go straight to the T-Spline modeling here. We're also going to have the parametric features, like I said. Goals for today will be importing an image into Fusion 360. So we'll be bringing this chair you see here on the right-hand side, the front and the side view of that. Next, we'll be applying parametric modeling techniques to the design. So in this case, it'll be for the chair legs. We can define what the diameter of the legs are as well as the length of it. And lastly, and this is actually going to be switched. We'll be doing the T-Splines first, but lastly, we'll be talking about T-Splines and bringing those into Fusion and pushing and pulling them to make these complex surfaces like these seat here. So once again, as a reminder, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask us in the GoToMeeting chat room. So here is the Fusion 360 user interface for the 95% of you. Welcome. For the 5% of you who are new to Fusion, welcome to Fusion 360. Here you have the workspaces you can hop between, and you have that left to right workflow again, the data panels where you store the memory, etc., etc. So let's go ahead and first start off with our first goal, which is to insert an image into Fusion. And I'm going to go under Insert here and go to Attach Canvas. Now this window appears, which gives us a few options to go to choose from. First, it's asking us with this blue highlighted select to select a face to put this canvas onto. I'll go ahead and select that one right there. Next, by clicking this mountain icon, we can select an image to bring into Fusion. I'll go ahead and select that chair side view here. And you can take pictures as well and save it as a PNG or JPEG, the supported formats that Fusion brings in. Like for an example, I have a customer that they had the real life model itself, but they didn't have the 3D model. So we had to reverse engineer that. And so we took a front and a side picture, brought it in like we are right now, and then we started reverse engineering that model. We can use these tools here, located next to the picture, to increase or decrease the size, to scale it. We can use these arrows to move it into location. And then over here, we have canvas opacity. So if this is at 0 opaqueness, it's completely invisible. If it's at 50%, you can see through it a good amount, but you can also see the picture while you're working. And if it's at 100%, it's going to be a complete full picture of this, and you cannot see through the model, even if you have display through on or anything like that. So let's go ahead and leave it about 50%. Next, there's display through. This allows you to see through your model to see the canvas. So I'll go ahead and leave that checked on. And lastly, there's selectable, which allows you to select the canvas while you're working, and I'll leave that checked off. And once we have it into a position that we like and the opaqueness set to the opacity we want, we'll go ahead and hit OK. And now we have this folder called canvases that we can drop down, and we can see our canvas in there. And I want to go ahead and actually calibrate it first. And what calibrating does is it allows me to choose 2 different points on this picture. So I'm going to select the first point being the top point of my chair, and then maybe the bottom point of the seat here. And now I can specify the distance in real life of what that would be. And right now it's about 1.39 inches, which might be a cute little chair that will sit on a table. But if you wanted to be something us humans can sit on, we can change that to about 18 inches. And now it scaled it, enlarged it tremendously there. On top of that, I want to also locate it in position to the origin, because I want to be able to use this origin later to help. I'm going to use the planes and the axes of this origin later to help me to further my modeling, like mirroring effects and things like that. So I'll go ahead and locate that canvas into that position there, hit OK. So now we have our side view, but we need to get it a better image or visualization of this model. Let's go ahead and bring in a front view as well. So I'm going to select this YZ plane instead of the XY plane. You can tell by the view cube at the top right hand corner of the screen there. I'll select this image, choose a front view, enlarge it roughly, and then I'm going to go ahead and calibrate this one as well later. Right click on it, calibrate from the top of the chair to about the bottom of it. That's going to be 18 inches as well. And lastly, let's go ahead and move that into position. All right. So now we have our front, we have our side. Now we can go ahead and start creating the T-Spline features of this model, or the seat. So to do that, all we need to do is go up here to create form. And now we've entered the Sculpt environment. Now there's another way to enter the Sculpt environment, and that's with the design history turned off. But in this case, with the design history turned off, you can just hop from workspace to workspace here. However, you wouldn't have a design history to work with. But with the design history turned on, you're able to reference the Sculpt later down the line. And you're able to reference other parametric features you might add later down the line as well. All right, so we get the option to choose one of these primitives to start with. We can choose a face if we wanted to start really basic, but we'll go ahead and start with a box. And for those of you who don't know, T-Splines helps you to create organic ergonomic shapes. I like to call it digital Play-Doh that you can use inside of Fusion here to add more of a realistic feel to a model instead of something boxy. So now I'm going to create this box about this plane, and I'm going to use this picture as a reference as to how big I should create it. So looks like I'm going to create it about 20 inches in the length here, and then for the width, maybe stretch it out. I don't want to stretch it out too far. I can do that later with the push-pull techniques, but this might be about 15 inches. So I'll go ahead and hit 15, and I'll tab over to the other length and hit 20. And then if I wait a few seconds there, it will now appear for us. So now we have a box that's still in preview mode because we still have this box window popped up, but I'm able to now adjust the size of it before I hit OK. I could adjust the number of faces that come with it in the X and Y direction. And the tip I like to talk about when I create these boxes, these primitives here, is you want to get away with the least amount of T-splines as possible because it allows you to, when you push and pull something with less T-splines, it gives you more of that smooth curve. But if you had a bunch of different faces or lines, it might be a little bit more of a sharp turn here and there. So once I have my model or the box ready to go, I can go ahead and hit OK. I want to move this into position, so I'm going to go ahead and double click to select all the faces there. And then I'm going to use this tool here, right click, edit form. Let me go ahead and do that again. I was a little too fast there. Right click, edit form at the about 1 o'clock. And then we are able to use these tools here to move the seat, the bottom of the seat, into location. So I'll put it about there. On top of that, before we do any push and pulling, we're going to add some symmetry onto this model. Now what symmetry does, it allows us to select 2 different faces on the model, and it creates a line of symmetry that instantaneously updates as you model. So if I edit the face on this side, it'll edit the face on the other side. And you can already see it's already highlighting the other face as well. So next, let's go ahead and select some of these faces. And now I'm going to pull them up to create that backrest. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click Edit Form, the most commonly used tool in the Sculpt environment. But notice how when I pull it up like that, it actually pulls up too much of this face as well. I could have made more faces over here, and it might not have pulled that up as well. Or what I could have done was hold Alt, which adds material to my model as I pull it up. So I'm holding Alt and adding material. However, when you turn it to the right-hand side like that, you can see that this actually giving us this gap here, and we don't want that gap. So what I tried to do earlier was also select some edges, and it still gave us that result. So instead, for the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and select these faces as well. Now that's the only scenario where I find myself selecting the other faces as well. But other than that, you can push-pull on one side, and you don't have to select the face on the other side.
Yeah, another workflow will probably be able to turn off symmetry just for this specific feature. And then once you actually extrude that up or pull that up, turn symmetry back on, right? So that's all. There's multiple ways to really go about this. And we have a question here from John asking, when adding material, how do you know exactly when to let go? And really the golden rule would be just try to keep the, I guess you can call them the faces, as even as possible, right? Now, sometimes it's not going to be, that easy to do, especially when you start getting to the top of that chair like Brian is showing. But yeah, the golden rule is when you're adding material, just try to keep the faces as even as possible.
Right. You want to see even spacing, like Alex is saying, in between these T-spline faces. If it's too crunched up in one area, you can start to see there's too much detail, if that even makes sense. If there's too much detail and crunched into that corner, it might be too many creases, I would say. So what I did there was I did the Alt technique, the adding material, and I kept dragging and holding alt and releasing alt, dragging, holding alt, releasing alt. I even used this implode explode technique to, by double clicking on this line, it allowed me to select the entire series of edges there. And I'm able to implode and explode these lines so I can line it up or shrink it to the silhouette in the background there. So now notice I can only get so far working with these T-splines. I didn't even get, you know, the silhouette over here as well. So now what I want to bring into play is the box mode inside of Fusion 360. And what the box mode is, I'll go ahead and show you, is if you go under selection options in your edit form window, there's a box display, both box and curve display, and the smooth display, which is what we're in right now. If I hit that box display, it shows us what the model actually looks like if you were to connect each vertice with a straight line. And I like to compare that to the spline tool in the sketch environment, where you have a curved line, but then if you turn on the straight line view or the box mode inside of the sketch environment, you can see that it just draws a line from vertice to vertice. So let's look at a good example over at maybe this one right here, this vertice to that vertice. It has this curved edge. I turn on box mode. It drew a straight line from there to there instead of the curvature. So that one might have moved a little bit, but that's the idea of it. You can see the underlying origins of how that T-spline was created. So with that being said, I like to go into box mode because it allows us to more easily move these vertices into position. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab some of these vertices and start moving them over to match up with the background, the canvas that we have in here. So if you guys have any questions, once again, please feel free to message us in the GoToMeeting chat room. Or at the end of the presentation, you can write down our email addresses if you don't have any questions right now. If you have one, you might have one later. Feel free to write down our email address. We'd love to answer any questions you might have. And it doesn't have to be about T-splines. It could be about CAM, for instance, or it could be about just 3D modeling parametrically.
Yeah, and of course, if you guys missed any of the steps that Brian is taking, or you know, maybe want to watch another video that we've created on Fusion, just tune into our YouTube channel. If you've been watching some of our webinars, you'll see that Brian works with chairs a lot, so he has a slight obsession with chairs. So any chair designers out there, feel free to reach out and pick Brian's brain about chair making.
I love chairs. Yeah, the last chair video was probably the rendering one that we had. So another tip I like to point out when I'm modeling with T-splines is you want to have a smooth transition from T-spline to T-spline as possible to give you the best shape as possible. Notice over here, it goes left, it goes right. I'm going to want to line those up by just selecting the vertice there. I can use these arrow tools, or I can use this square here to allow me to line it into position so it can flow freely or smoothly from T-spline to T-spline. And the more smooth you can get that, the better your appearance will look at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and line these up as well. So everywhere you can see continuity, that's what you're going to want to line up. And it looks like I might be having a little bit of an overlap over here. So I'm going to want to pull that vertice out so then it doesn't overlap. Or then we'll get that error afterwards saying like your T-spline models are overlapping or something like that. So you definitely don't want that. Not only can you select the vertices, but you can select edges as well. And that can help you to select the entire series of I guess vertices. So
I guess you have a question here from Robert as well. How are you jumping from the box mode to the smooth mode again.
Oh, okay. So I am holding, if you see here on the right hand side, there's Alt+1, Alt+2, Alt+3. That means that's a short keyboard shortcut for jumping from box mode to smooth mode. So go ahead and try that, Robert. Just hold Alt+1 and then to get into box mode, and Alt+3 to get into smooth mode. So I'm almost done here, but before we finish, we want to check what it's going to look like when it's smooth. So I'm going to go back to Alt+3, and it's going to want to be a little bit bigger on this side, and I want the edges on the bottom here to come out, as well as this area might be a little bit too sharp of an edge. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that as well. So that's the benefits to hopping from Alt+1 to Alt+3. So you can quickly and easily check to see what the smooth display looks like. So we're going to have a few more minutes of me editing these T-splines. So if you guys have any questions, if you guys just want to watch the techniques I use for this, feel free.
All right, and Bernie's also asking if we can get these chair images out to him so that they can follow later on. So yeah,
Sure.
we'll get those images out to you, Bernie, and send them to you via email.
Yeah, definitely something I would practice if you want to get into T-spline modeling. This isn't something you can just put in values in like traditional CAD modelers are used to, what we were used to as well.
Mm-hmm.
And some people might feel uneasy using T-splines because they don't have an exact value or it doesn't look a certain way, and you can get frustrated with that. But the more you spend working on T-splines, the more, oops, I'm losing my model here, the better you'll get at it. And it might be frustrating in the beginning. It might not look like you're getting anywhere, but eventually you're going to be learning and learning and learning from how the T-splines behave, and then you can eventually become good at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, working with T-splines is definitely an art. And like Brian said, once you start getting the hang of it, you'll start realizing, okay, once you move this point, how is that going to affect the model, right, or the surface of the model? So yeah, definitely it takes a little bit of practice to get used to working with T-splines.
And that's why I gave you guys those tips as to lining up these lines, so then they're continuous to each other, kind of like this right there. I want everything to be as straight or
just a smooth flow.
Transitioning smoothly as possible, so we can get that good outcome. And now I'm going to go down here to the shaded box. If you guys aren't used to this is because this is an add-in that Alex found actually that allows me to toggle between shaded and edges without having to go through my display settings. So it's a little bit faster, very shortcut. It's called Visual Styles, I believe, inside of the Fusion 360 add-ins. There's a tab up here. Right now I'm in the Sculpt environment. You can't see it, but there's a tab up here for add-ins, and you could bring in that add-in. There's a bunch of different other add-ins you can do a search for as well. I'm about almost done here in the Sculpt environment, but what I want to do is have a little indent on my chair here, so then the people sitting in my chairs don't fall out or slide off. I'll go ahead and select these faces by holding Control and just give that a light touch there, and then let's check how that looks like when it's smooth. So it's almost where I want it to be. I'm not going to spend too much more time on this chair. I'm just going to get it as good as I can for this presentation, but let's go ahead and call this good to go. So go ahead and hit OK. And I'm going to finish form, and that takes us out of the Sculpt environment back into the model workspace here. And notice how these are now surfaces, and they're being cut by that line there. It doesn't look like the T-splines that we're used to. And if you want to go back to editing the T-splines, you can just double click on the Form 1 button down below here, the purple icon there. So next, let's go ahead and see what the legs are going to look like for this chair. So there's a lot of ways you can do this. I'm going to show you one way that that involves a lot of creation of planes, and I think this is useful because I don't think we see enough planes when we're showing webinars or the presentations. I want to see more planes come into view because it's a really vital part of the modeling process. So first, I'm going to start off with the offset plane. I'm sure if you've used Fusion before, this is a very common tool. I'm going to offset this to this leg here. And notice how they're moving in increments of 1. If I zoom in even more and I now move the plane, it's going to move in increments of 0.5. And if I zoom in even more, it's going to move in increments of 0.1. And that's just a little fun tip there for you. So I'll go ahead and zoom out and hit OK. I'm going to hide this origin. I don't need that anymore. And bear with me for the reason why I created this, because now I'm going to create a line on this plane at about the location of this leg, or the beginning location of this leg. It's just going to be a rough sketch right there. And the reason I'm doing that is so now I can create a plane at an angle. And this is my second favorite plane tool here in Fusion. So I can select that axis or that line, and now I can rotate this plane out in that offsetted space to match up with that leg image. Now we have that going for us. I can go ahead and hide the sketch. Now we can start creating the line of this leg on this angled plane, which is angled perfectly for that leg. So go ahead and use the line tool, select that new plane, and I'm going to draw a line going from this spot here straight down through the leg, because later now I'm going to use a sweep. I'm going to create a circle at the end of this line and use a sweep to give it the volume or the 3D. So now I'm going to use my favorite plane tool, which is going to be the plane along path. And this tool allows you to create a plane that goes along either a curved path like a spline or a straight line like this. And it creates a plane normal to that that line or that path. And the neat thing about this is if you enter a value of 0, you can create a plane at the way end of this line over here. If you enter a value of 0.5, you can create one right in the middle of that line. And if you enter in a value of 1, you can create one at the end of the line here, which is what we want to do. So now we have a plane normal to the line or the path here. So now I'm going to create a circle on this plane, and I can define it at 1.5 inches in diameter. So now I think we're good with the canvas there. We can go ahead and take a look at what this is going to look like. And now I want to do a sweep. And like I said, there's a lot of different ways you can do this. I just wanted to choose this way because I think this is it shows a lot of different useful tools definitely to use down the line. So I'm going to go ahead and use the sweep maneuver there. It doesn't touch, unfortunately. So what I can do is go back to the design history, and this is the power of Fusion's design history tree or bar down below here. You can go back in time. I can drag this line out a little bit, maybe a little bit closer into the model there, and then it'll update everything preceding it down below here. So next, instead of having to do that process over and over again, we'll use the mirror tool. And make sure not to use the 2D mirror tool because that's only for sketches. It doesn't even allow us to in this scenario, but you want to use the 3D mirror tool under create here. Now I'm going to select the body I want to mirror, the plane I want to mirror it about, and this is the benefit to having our model built about the origin, and then hit OK. And then we're going to do it one more time onto the other side. Select the objects we want to mirror it about that, and then hit OK. So now we have something going for us. Oh no, I forgot the fillet at the bottom of my leg there. Once again, we'll use the power of the design history bar down below here. And instead of adding 4 different fillets to these legs, we can drag this back to where we had the leg by itself before the mirrors. And then I'm gonna hit F on my keyboard for fillet, select that edge, drag it in about 0.5 inches, hit OK, and now I'm gonna drag one mirror it over the fillet, and then the other mirror as well. So now we have our legs in. The reason I create these as separate bodies is so then when we hit A for appearance, we can choose different bodies to apply it to rather than faces. Because if this was all one body, we would drag and drop it onto it and it'd all be one of these colors. But I want my legs to be a bamboo dark color. And then I want my my seat to be maybe this cherry glossy, for instance. And once you do a little bit more editing, if you add some of those structures for the leg here as the canvas had, you can go here to the rendering workspace. And if you guys saw our rendering video, it's posted on YouTube right now. It's about how all the different scene settings and settings you can do here in the rendering workspace, whether you want to do a local rendering or a cloud rendering. And we can show you how to create a high quality image. I actually have one created for you guys. Here it is of that same model, except I added some gold support structures here at the bottom. And rendering takes, I would say, about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how high quality the image is or how big your image is as well. And if you do cloud rendering, you can continue working on your computer while it's rendering in the background for you. So once again, I love those chairs. That's why I made a chair today for you guys. All right. So like I said, here are our email addresses and the company's phone number. You can just ask for Brian or Alex and write down our email addresses. Please reach out to us. We'd love to answer any questions you might have about this webinar, answer any questions you might have about other Autodesk products as well. Bernie, we will be sending you the images of the chair, the front and side views, so then you can practice that on your own. If you guys, other people want it as well, just let us know. Just leave it in the chat room or send us an email.
Yeah, so at this point, I guess we can start answering some questions. So we have a question here from Adam. Why not stay in smooth mode when you're doing your surface, your T-Spline?
So it's easier to pull the vertices of the box mode because you can see those line up. Like I was showing you the tip I gave, where you would line it up and have a smooth transition from line to line. You can actually see it rather than if you're in the smooth mode. When you pull a vertice, it's a lot more difficult to see, and that just takes practice. And you'll understand more why later on. Once you do in box mode and as opposed to the smooth mode, you'll start to see like, oh, that's why we're in box mode, because it's a lot easier to push and pull the surfaces and the vertices.
Yeah, you can also diagnose some of the errors, right, when you get from going from the T-Spline environment to actually finishing form.
Yeah, definitely. You can definitely see like lines that are completely distorted and out of place. And the more and more, like I said, the more and more practice, the more and more you see it, the more obvious it is to you which ones you should line up.
Yep. So we'll give it a few more seconds here for a few more questions.
Yeah, and this video will be on YouTube like the rest of our videos have been. We also have other Autodesk videos as well for our AVA, Autodesk Virtual Academy, which is our big brother series of webinars, which we stem off of, and they talk about AutoCAD, Inventor, Nastran, Nastran Vault, and things like that. So if you guys are interested in those products, feel free to let us know as well. We can send you the link to sign up for that, or you can go to KETIV and AVA, and you can sign up for free for that as well.
Yep. So at this point, it doesn't look like we have many questions coming in.
So yeah, if you comment and you want to see a particular idea or a particular workspace, feel free to let us know, and then we might make it happen like this one is.
All right, guys. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
See ya.